Hi everybody, nicholefecteau, real estate agent at Better Homes and Gardens, Masiello here. And today I want to talk about escrow. So I just got back from a trip to Florida and was lucky enough while down there to meet some great real estate agents, and my partner and I wrote up an offer on a potential investment property, and we are in the backup position on that. But, when making the escrow deposit for that and in other transactions recently, it has come up that, what is escrow and how can a seller keep an escrow if a buyer backs out of a contract or the contract falls apart? So number one is when you don't have a binding contract. This is the Florida contract. It's 12 pages long. In Maine, our contract is 4 pages, and the last page is just signatures. 12 pages. It's been fun. I'm going to actually read more of this today. But the escrow is what binds the contract. So when an escrow is received and deposited, that is actually what makes a binding contract. Just a contract with signatures and with no escrow, it's not a contract. So once you have that escrow and it's deposited and it's being held, that is the buyer's way of saying that we are serious about this contract. And as a seller or a seller's agent, I always recommend getting a high escrow deposit. So a lot of buyers are going to try to put a small escrow in, like $1,000. I've seen $500. And as a seller's agent, I'm going to encourage or renegotiate for a higher escrow. So we like to see upwards of 10% in escrow, especially if they're already putting down that money on the house, because you want your escrow deposit as a seller, you want your escrow deposit to be something that is going to be painful to walk away from. And that really keeps the buyer vested in the contract. So I've had 2 instances this year so far, and one of them just happened where a buyer walked away from a contract. So this is on a listing I have right now. Buyer has a life situation that is making them unable to complete the purchase. We were supposed to close today, actually, and they're not going to fulfill the contract. So we have a certain amount of money in escrow. I'm glad it's not $1,000, it's more than that. And so the seller has asked the buyer to release the escrow to the seller because it's through no fault of the seller that the buyer is walking away. The buyer is defaulting on the contract. The seller gets to keep the escrow. Of course, both parties still have to agree that the seller keeps the escrow. So with a termination, there's also an escrow release document. And the escrow release document says who gets the escrow, how it's divided up, if it is, and both parties have to sign that. And if both parties don't sign it, then the escrow doesn't get released. I had that happen last year. So I had a listing, the buyers wouldn't release the escrow after they walked away from the transaction. The seller wound up having to take them to small claims court. He wound up getting the escrow, and it was only $1,000, and it was probably a lot of fighting for $1,000, but it's the point of it. That's why we have escrow. That's why we have contracts. That's the point of it. So that's how a seller can keep escrow. If the buyer defaults on the contract and it's not through a contingency in the contract, then the buyer or the seller does have the ability to keep the escrow. Of course, both parties still have to agree on it. And in the end, a broker can step in and make the decision if the actual clients cannot agree. If you've got any questions about contracts, escrow, or the value of your home, if you're seeing this on Facebook, you can send me a message. If you're seeing this on my YouTube channel, you can text me at 207-251-9535. Thanks a lot. I will see you guys tomorrow.